Introduction to Teacup Reading and Fortune-Telling by Tea Leaves. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. This has been read by Roslyn Carlyle. Teacup Reading and Fortune-Telling by Tea Leaves by A. Highland Seer. Introduction. It is somewhat curious that among the great number of books on occult science and all forms of divination which have been published in the English language, there should be none dealing exclusively with the teacup reading and the art of telling fortunes by the tea leaves, notwithstanding that it is one of the most common forms of divination practised by the peasants of Scotland and by village fortune-tellers in all parts of this country. In many of the cheaper handbooks to fortune-telling by cards or in other ways, only brief references to the teacup method are given, but only too evidently by writers who are merely acquainted with it by hearsay, and have not made a study of it for themselves. This is probably because the reading of the teacups affords but little opportunity to the seer of extracting money from credulous folk. A reason why it was never adopted by the gypsy soothsayers, who preferred the more obviously lucrative methods of crossing the palm with gold or silver, or of charging a fee for manipulating a pack of playing cards. Reading the cup is essentially a domestic form of fortune-telling to be practised at home, and with success, by anyone who will take the trouble to master the simple rules laid down in these pages. And it is in the hope that it will provide a basis for much innocent and inexpensive amusement and recreation round the tea table at home, as well as for a more serious study of an interesting subject, that this little guidebook to the science is confidently offered to the public. End of introduction.
Chapter 1 of Teacup Reading and Fortune-Telling by Tea Leaves. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information, or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Charles Oldfield. Teacup Reading and Fortune-Telling by Tea Leaves. Chapter 1. Introduction to the Art of Divination from Tea Leaves. It seems highly probable that at no previous period of the world's history have there been so many persons as there are at the present moment anxious to ascertain in advance, if that may be humanly possible, a knowledge of at least what a day may bring forth. The incidence of the greatest of all wars, which has resulted in sparse news of those from whom we are separated, and produces a state of uncertainty as to what the future holds in store for each of the inhabitants of the British Empire, is, of course, responsible for the increase in the perfectly sane and natural curiosity, with its inevitable result, a desire to employ any form of divination in the hope that some light may happily be cast upon the darkness and obscurity of the future. It is unfortunately the case, as records of the police courts have recently shown, that the creation of this demand for foreknowledge of coming events or for information as to the well-being of distant relatives and friends has resulted in the abundant supply of the wants of scores of pretended fortune-tellers and diviners of the future, who, trading upon the credulity and anxieties of their unfortunate fellow-countrywomen, seek to make a living at their expense. Now it is an axiom, which centuries of experience have shown to be as sound as those of Euclid himself, that the moment the taint of money enters into the business of reading the future, the accuracy and credit of the fortune-told disappears. The fortune-teller no longer possesses the singleness of mind or purpose necessary to a clear reading of the symbols he or she consults. The amount of the fee is the first consideration, and this alone is sufficient to obscure the mental vision and to bias the judgment. This applies to the very highest and most conscientious of fortune-tellers. Persons really adept at foreseeing the future when no taint of monetary reward intervenes. The greater number, however, of so-called fortune-tellers are but charlatans, with the merest smattering of partly assimilated knowledge of some form of divination or character-reading, whether by cards, coins, dice,
Sample complete. Ready to continue?